Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and the next round is set, the divisional round. We know the Texans' next opponent. It will be the Kansas City Chiefs, and as the time I'm filming this, I'm doing it right after the Broncos-Bills game, which if you didn't watch that one, you weren't missing a ton, right? Like, the game was not that good. But now we know the Texans will have to travel to Arrowhead to face the Kansas City Chiefs because the Bills absolutely took it to the Denver Broncos. They absolutely laid the wood in Buffalo. But for everything going on around the Houston Texans, so you never miss a beat of Texans football, make sure you keep me locked in. I want to thank everybody during my watch party this past week. We were able to hit 24,000 subs. We got to win. 25,000 subs, I think, equals a win for your Houston Texans. And I'm not done yet. I'm not ready for this team to be done yet. And you shouldn't either. Make sure you hit that sub button for daily Texans videos. If you missed the game yesterday between the Texans and the Chargers, you missed an instant classic for Texans fans. The first quarter, not pretty. The rest of the game, this team looked dominant, looked like they were absolutely ready to go. And I was rooting for the Steelers last night. I'm just going to say that. I was rooting for the Steelers last night because after this game, I was hoping, maybe the Texans, by some stroke of luck, could play the Buffalo Bills or maybe even have a home game for if we were really lucky. But after last night, I had a thought, which would be better? And I want to hear from you before I tell you my thoughts, before I get into what my thoughts around this are. I want to know from you, who would you have rather faced if you had the choice between the Chiefs or the Ravens? Because after last night, those were the two options. It was either going to be the Chiefs or it was going to be the Chiefs or the Ravens. Yeah, it was either going to be the Chiefs or the Ravens after last night. Let me know. Who would you have rather faced? Get down in the comment section and let me know. And coming up, I'm going to tell you why my answer to this might surprise you, but I'm actually going to say the Chiefs. I wanted the Texans this morning to play the Chiefs over the Baltimore Ravens. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out my kind of thought train, my way of thinking and going to that. And I know people in the office called me crazy. People were like, Jeremy, no way you want to play the Chiefs over the Baltimore Ravens. But I actually think this is a good thing for the Houston Texans. And there's a couple reasons why, even past how the teams have played this year. But I really do think the Texans match up better up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll break all that down in just a moment. But quick shout out to the sponsor of today's program in PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy, folks. All you got to do, go more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It truly is that easy. Get started today with our friends over at PrizePicks. It's playoff time. Not just for the Texans, not just for professional football. While I'm filming this Eagles-Packers game going on in the background, also college football. Notre Dame, Ohio State. If you want to win some money with your sports knowledge during the national championship game, we'll do it with our friends over at PrizePicks. And for my listeners, they have an amazing deal. All you got to do is use that code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS. $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Get started with our friends over at PrizePicks. You won't regret it. Right now they have a special going on for the national championship game. They have discounted Will Howard 1 passing yard. I think we all know the Ohio State quarterback is going to get more than 1 passing yard. So if you want to take advantage of that, make some money this playoff time, make sure you do it with our friends over at PrizePicks. So I have 3 reasons why I think this is good news for the Houston Texans and why I think this is actually a better matchup for the Texans. First up, like I said, I think the Texans just match up better up against the Kansas City Chiefs than the Baltimore Ravens. Call me crazy, but I don't like store-bought pesto. I also don't think the Texans match up good against the Ravens in their running scheme. I mean, the Texans, they're at their best defending the pass. We saw that with the Chargers. We took away the run game. They stopped using J.K. Dobbins. And then what happened? Justin Herbert, a guy who hadn't thrown an interception. I mean, he'd thrown 3 all season. He throws 4 up against the Houston Texans. And the Texans, they only lost by 8 to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's also with the horrific Tank Dell injury that happened in that game as well. So I felt like they were at least in that game. I felt like they were in it. And I know the Ravens game came after that, and it was on a short week during Christmas, everything that had to do with that game. But still, the Texans were not in that game at any point in the game at all. I mean, once the whistle blew, that first drive by the Ravens, it was evident that they were beating the Texans. And I think the Ravens' rushing attack, their running game, is really going to affect the Texans if they were to have to play the Baltimore Ravens this next round. I think they match up better against the Chiefs because the Chiefs, they like to throw the ball with Patrick Mahomes, but their offensive line is not good. And I think the Texans' D-line and their pass rush, which was fantastic, is going to be able to disrupt Mahomes a little bit. And now I don't want anybody to get over their heads and think, oh, Jeremy thinks the Texans should be favorites against the Chiefs. No, I still think the Texans are going to need to play their A++ game, not make any mistakes to beat the reigning, defending, undisputed NFL champions in the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think they have a better shot to beat them than the Baltimore Ravens because this guy right here was on an absolute tear up against the Los Angeles Chargers. Will Anderson Jr., 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 pass breakups. He looked like a man on a mission. They call him the Terminator because this dude looked like an absolute machine up against the Chargers. He was on one, and I'm really excited to see his next step, his next evolution of how he can play on this defensive line. Him and Danielle Hunter, I think, can really cause some havoc. And the interior pass rush, too, Danico Autry, Mario Edwards Jr., Tim Settle, they all looked great up against the Chargers. So I can't wait to see what they can do up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's another reason why I think this is pretty good news that the Texans are going to face Kansas City. And then number 3, I think Mixon is just getting going. I think he can make an impact, and I think he can really be a game changer for the Texans if he's able to build off this performance. He wasn't good in the first half, but that second half Joe Mixon that we saw when the Texans were up and they needed to bleed the clock, that's the Joe Mixon that we need. 25 carries, 106 yards, 1 touchdown up against the Chargers in the wildcard round. If he can stay on fire, if he can stay hot, I really do believe the Texans can take, this momentum, this wave that they got from beating the Chargers, the nobody believes in us attitude, and I really do think they can shock a lot of people and end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs this week. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. After what we saw this week up against the Chargers, this defense, this team is motivated. I think they're ready to go. So I think this is good news for the Texans that they will be traveling to Arrowhead and playing the Chiefs in the divisional round. We already know there's a history between the Texans and the Chiefs in the playoffs. Who else was there when the Texans were absolutely trouncing the Chiefs? I believe it was 24-0, and then they ended up coming back. This Texans team has some unfinished business up against Kansas City, and I can't wait to see them get it done this weekend. Make sure you hit that sub button. Don't miss a moment of Texans football because I'll be breaking everything down this week, and I'll be ready for Texans-Chiefs divisional round.